Now, you were not born blind.
No, I went blind when I was an early teenager, 13, from a rare eye disease called retina skesis, and within a matter of 4 or 5 years, I went totally blind.
Were you mad?
Yeah, I mean, I was mad. I was stubborn not to accept it. I was angry underneath the surface, and I was, pretty much caught up in denial. Don't ask me how a person, when they go blind, can somehow try to deny that they're blind, but eventually your brain accepts it, and it's not like your brain accepts it in some great epiphany. I think you accept something after you just get your head beat in enough times that you realize, I got to accept it, or I'm not going to live. At least maybe that's just average intelligence people. Maybe really smart people can figure out something without going through the pain. They can just figure it out conceptually, and then they can do it. But I don't know, a lot of us, I maybe can't do that. So I accepted blindness after I fell down a few sets of stairs, and after I tripped off a dock and landed on my back on the deck of a boat, and I just got tired of doing that. And I thought, you got to learn to live as a blind person. And believe it or not, my success as a blind person didn't come out of beating blindness or overcoming it. It came out of accepting it. And when I've heard philosophers talk about it, it's really interesting to me. It's sort of, they say you accept the what is of your life. I heard somebody describe it that way. I like that a lot, accepting the what is. And I accepted blindness, and I started learning to use a cane, and I started to learn how to read Braille and how to use computers with voice synthesizers and how to climb with my hands and my feet, because that's what I had. And once I accepted it, and I learned to deal within that realm, and I learned to figure out some creative ways of, let's say, bypassing what you might think a blind person can do.
What light did you find inside yourself?
Well, nobody wishes bad things upon themselves. Nobody wants bad things to happen to them. Nobody wants to have cancer or go blind, or they're very tough things, but you do learn from them. And when I was 13 years old going blind, I saw a show on TV, a show called That's Incredible, and there was a guy named Terry Fox, and he had lost a leg to cancer, and he was running across Canada, and wow, I'd never seen anything like that. This guy whose face was a complete contradiction. He was exhausted, yet at the same time he was exalted, and I thought to myself, there's a light inside of us, and that light sort of can feed on frustration and failure and adversity, and actually can use those things as fuel, and it can actually gain strength from adversity, and it can make you more creative and more driven and more focused, and every now and then can even enable you to rise above yourself.
Being blind, you use the word vision a lot. Mm-hmm. What is vision to you?
Well, I distinguish in my mind the difference between a goal and a vision in the way that I think a goal is very step by step and tangible and linear, but I think a vision is more about how we see ourselves living our lives, how we see ourselves serving other people and impacting the world, what kind of legacy we want to leave for the future. And I see a lot of people focus on goals, and they sometimes go unfulfilled because there's no unifying vision that takes those goals and binds them together and gives them purpose and power. I think you first have to have a vision of who you want to be versus what you want to do.
Of all the people who even climb Everest, who make an attempt on it, only 10% make it.
Yeah.
Well, Erik, you're blind, and I know you know this, but I think, Erik, you're blind. Were you afraid?
Yeah.
Were you scared? I mean, what were you thinking? And
I get petrified, I have to say. I mean, and when I was a kid,
really,
I used to get, so scared I'd get paralyzed with fear. I wouldn't be able to even make decisions, and on Everest, there were many days where I knew I was going to be confronting a really difficult part of the mountain, and even, my hands would get sweaty, and I'd be dropping things, and I'd feel clumsy, and I'd feel like I was in slow motion. I was like just so scared, and so you never can eradicate fear. What you have to do, though, is to find a way, I think, to put fear in its place and translate that sense of fear into focus. And the way I've done that over the years is I've gotten very comfortable with a great team of friends around me who I know are going to be supporting me when I need them, and I'll support them. And you prepare as much as humanly possible, and you take that fear that was once paralyzing and you translate it into a sense of focus so that you know what to do in a situation. You're hyper-focused on what's around you and what you're experiencing, and you don't allow that fear to cloud your mind and to make it lose your will. My friend Chris Morris, he's a great guy, and I always call him the simple philosopher because he's so smart and he doesn't even know it, and he says you almost have to con yourself into believing that you can do anything. And he said it's literally a con game that you play with your mind. I would sit in my tent and I would imagine myself, I'd believe myself onto the summit every day, and I'd see myself standing there, and then sometimes I'd see myself, I'd say, that's crazy, you're just going through the motions, you're never going to summit this mountain. And then I'd say, get that out of your brain, and I'd start to see myself standing on the mountain again, on the summit. So you actually force your mind, you give yourself the discipline to see yourself succeeding. And I did that all the time. And then maybe lastly, I think it comes down to what a friend of mine, Charlie Mace, told me once. He said, everything in life just comes down to how bad you want it. And, sometimes I've failed on things and I've thought about it. I didn't want it bad enough.
What is it like to stand on the top of the world?
Well, a mountain summit is, the size of a single car garage. And you're up there with your friends, hopefully. For me, on Everest, I was standing with 18 other friends and people I'd worked with a lot to get to the top. And so I was very proud to be there with all those 18 people. We were the most people from one team to reach the summit of Everest in a single day. So we still have a world record, and that was the greatest honor of my life to be there with those guys. But then a part of you, I guess, doesn't believe you're there because you're standing there, yet you work so hard to get there, and your brain doubted you so many times, and you're afraid so many times. It's almost like your brain doesn't catch up to your body until maybe a month or two later, when then your brain finally reaches the summit and you realize what you've done. So summits are a funny place. They're a retrospective place. But I think really in a symbolic way, a summit a summit can be anywhere. I mean, I think a summit is that moment when we realize our lives are important, that we can contribute to something extraordinary, that we can transform our lives into whatever we want them to be. And when we come together with good people, we can transform the world in a positive way.
So though it may not be Everest, there is a summit for us too. There's a summit in our future if we choose.
Yeah, there's summits all the time. I think people just miss their summits, a lot of times. I think a summit could be playing tennis with a friend, or could be getting on the floor with your kid playing Candyland, or it could be taking a walk with your dog. It could be on a date with your wife or your husband. I think people miss summits, and I think in a little bit it's people miss summits because they only see summits in terms of accomplishment, summits of achievement, and they forget that there's an entirely different kind of summit, and that's a summit of joy, and it's just a snapshot that captures the essence of who you are and who you want to be and who you love and the people that are important to you.